Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we are back with kind of an interesting topic. I was just kind of looking back at some of the predictions that CBS Sports had for one of the greatest college basketball seasons of all time back in 2019. And I found their top 100 player rankings for the 2018-19 college basketball season. And we're about to take a look at them. This is kind of crazy. And I'm going to give some of what I kind of think for some of these guys. So without further ado, let's get started. So first up here for CBS Sports, they had RJ Barrett at number 1. This kind of makes a little bit of sense. I mean, he was the number 1 recruit in the country going to Duke to play with Zion Williamson, and he was at the time considered to be the number 1 overall draft pick in 2018 to the NBA. It says that he destroyed Team USA in the 2017 FIBA Under-19 World Cup. So it kind of makes sense that they had him at number 1. Number 2, this is another reasonable one. They had Carson Edwards from Purdue. They said he was 67th last year, but he averaged 19 points per game and kind of boosted his stock. He had a great season for Purdue in 2019, right before going to the NBA to the Celtics, and led them to the tournament, having a great season. At number 3, they have Luke May, a senior small forward on North Carolina. May didn't really have that great of a season at UNC this year. He kind of got replaced a little bit by Nazir Little. I mean, he still had a good year. He signed with the Bucks in training camp after this season, but he could have been a lot better. I feel like he should have been more in the 20s maybe. This was the first year he was really like the star of a team, and it didn't go that well. Number 4, they had Dedrick Lawson, a transfer from Memphis who transferred to Kansas. They said Lawson averaged 19 and 10 on a bad Memphis team. Think of the possibilities in a Kansas unit. He was not the best player for Bill Self at Kansas. He was their starting power forward for a few games to open the season. Then I think he got benched or something. He never really had too much success. He struggled a bit. And it just doesn't make any sense looking back, seeing him at number 4 as a guy that never really had too great of a jump shot at the power forward position and never really worked out for Kansas. At number 5, they had Caleb Martin. Makes a little bit of sense. I mean, he should be a little bit lower, but he ended up being a good NBA player for the Hornets. Like every team he's played for, he's been a contributor. He was at Nevada that year, his junior season. He got drafted by the Hornets later that year. Number 6, they had Grant Williams, which makes a lot of sense. Williams was the SEC Player of the Year 2 years in a row in the 2018 season, and then in this year that we're going over right now, 2019. And then he was drafted first round by the Celtics. Great player, and he was amazing at Tennessee that year. Then at number 7, we have Ethan Happ at Wisconsin. A big man senior at Wisconsin. He led them in points, rebounds, assists, blocks, and steals in 2018. He was pretty good for them in 2019, but not really a guy that ever translated well to the NBA or really even had too big of an impact in 2019. I don't even think they even made the tournament. Number 8, we have Shamori Pons, a junior guard from St. John's. He ended up making the NBA for the 76ers, but overall he was not a super successful player. He had a good year at St. John's. He led them to the tournament, but I feel like he's another guy that it would have made more sense for him to be a little bit lower down in the list. Number 9, we have Nazir Little. He was a McDonald's All-American player, a serious contender to go number 1 in the 2019 NBA draft. That's a little bit crazy looking back for guys that don't know about what Nazir Little has hype, but he was a very hyped up player going to North Carolina, and it was kind of surprising seeing that he struggled a little bit in his freshman year. Still ended up going in the first round, though, right after this year. Number 10, the first complete shock to me, is Tyus Battle at Syracuse in his junior season. He could have gone top 40 in the 2018 draft, they said, but returned to Syracuse. And they say that he's one of the best prospects in the NBA draft for 2019. He never ended up getting drafted. He didn't end up even, I don't think, getting a training camp spot in the NBA. For Syracuse, he took a big step back. He would have benefited a lot more going in the 2018 draft and actually getting a chance to get drafted. At number 11, they had Tremont Waters, who had a really good season at LSU as their starting point guard and ended up getting drafted by the Celtics. Really good playmaker and a pretty solid shooter as well. Number 12, they had Mike Daum from South Dakota State, a senior power forward. He dominated the Summit League for years and years. He was back-to-back Conference Player of the year going into this. He won it a third time as a senior, and he averaged 22 and 8 as a junior. As his senior season, he led them back to the tournament and ended up going down as one of the best players in conference history. At number 13, we finally get to Zion Williamson. They say whether flashy dunks and vicious oop finishes will translate to a productive college career and later pro career is yet to be determined. And then they go on to say that they are unsure if Zion will have a super successful career just because of his athleticism. They say he's an electric player, and they think that he'll just basically just be a star athlete. He ended up being a pretty good NBA player. I mean, he's a multi-time All-Star. At number 14, they had Rui Hachimura, a junior at Gonzaga. He ended up having an amazing season there, leading them to the Elite Eight, and then getting drafted in the lottery to the Wizards. Number 15, they had Romeo Langford. This is another kind of crazy one. He was a freshman at Indiana, had a really inconsistent year as a freshman there, but he did end up going 14th overall to the Celtics. Didn't last very long in the NBA. Number 16, they have Marcus Howard from Marquette. This one makes a lot of sense. He was top 5 in scoring at Marquette this season as a junior, and he averaged 20 a game as a sophomore going into this season. He was one of the best players in all of college basketball and led Marquette to a deep run in the NCAA tournament. Number 17, they have Eric Pascal. Pascal, he had a pretty good season. He ended up getting a second-round pick, but mostly because of his age. He was 23 going into the 2019 draft to the Warriors, and he was really good as a rookie, kind of fell out of the league. Really weird career for him. 18, they had Reed Travis from Kentucky. Travis was a senior this season and didn't really have that good of a year, all things considered. He was kind of their leading guy, but this was a down year from Kentucky overall. I think they did end up making the tournament, but Reed Travis and P.J. Washington were kind of their 1A and 1B. It's kind of just weird to see a guy like Reed Travis this high, kind of like Tyus Battle, guys that never ended up working out in the NBA. Number 19, they have Cam Reddish. Makes sense. Top 3 recruit in college, and he ended up teaming up with Zion and Barrett and ended up having a pretty solid NBA career. Now he's going overseas. 20, they have Kyle Guy from Virginia. Ended up leading Virginia, or being a co-leader, I guess, to DeAndre Hunter at Virginia to the national championship game where, or did they make the national? I think they won the national championship this season versus Texas Tech. Kyle Guy ended up getting drafted to the Heat and played a couple seasons there. Number 21, we have Quentin Grimes from Kansas. He was terrible as a freshman at Kansas, then ended up transferring to Houston. That's where he finally broke out and ended up getting drafted in 2020. But him being at number 21 as a true freshman at Kansas does not make much sense because he, going back and looking back at this, he was horrible as a freshman. Number 22, we have Cassius Winston at Michigan State. This is another guy that completely broke out this season, had an amazing year at Michigan State. Looking back, he should be definitely higher, but number 22 is definitely not bad. 23, we have Dean Wade from Kansas State. This was his final season in college before going pro, undrafted to the Cavaliers. He was a really good stretch four in college at Kansas State and ended up leading them to the tournament. He did get hurt before their conference tournament started, though, and was part of the reason why Kansas State got bounced in the first round at UC Irvine, though. Number 24, we have Kellen Grady from Davidson. This is another kind of crazy one because I barely know who he is. He averaged 18 a game as a freshman, it says, and they say that he'll join fellow Wildcat Steph Curry in the NBA someday. That is kind of crazy expectations. I think he ended up going to Kentucky or something later on in his career, but I don't know much about the guy. Him being at number 24 does not make much sense to me, but that's just because I don't know much about him. Number 25, we have Charles Matthews from Michigan. He had an okay season. I mean, that Michigan team was not very good. They didn't make the tournament. And he ended up getting an NBA tryout, but didn't end up making the NBA. Number 26, we have Lindell Wigginton, a sophomore guard from Iowa State. He ended up having a really good season this year alongside Tyrese Halliburton and Mariel Shayok in the backcourt, and ended up going to the Timberwolves for Summer League that season, and then later catching on for some regular season games with the Bucks. 27, they had Daniel Gafford, a senior center from Arkansas. I never knew he played all 4 years in college, but let's see what they have to say about him. He's a rare instance of a player on this list who's a big man and the centerpiece of the team's offense. He ended up becoming a really solid NBA player. He could be a starter on about probably 15 to 20 different teams in the league. He's just on a Dallas team that has Derek Lively, who's another really good big man. Number 28, they have Jalen Hudson from Florida, a senior guard. I have never heard of this guy. 40% from three the season prior. I think I have heard of him, actually. He never made the NBA, though. 29, they have P.J. Washington from Kentucky. They say Washington debated going pro, would have probably been drafted but came back. That's a set of circumstances. Set of circumstances that doesn't materialize for Kentucky freshmen. Washington's a bit different from most, though, and he plays with great passion, could be the team's leader, and he thinks going to be a monster alongside Reed Travis. I mean, he ended up being a really solid NBA player for the Hornets, now the Mavericks, and the draft right after this season, he ended up getting drafted pretty high. Number 30, they have Kamar Baldwin, the fourth out of Butler. He never really had a crazy NBA career. I mean, he played for the Celtics in Summer League, and then he played for their G League team. I don't know where he is now, but I don't think he had that great of a season this year anyway. Number 31, they have Juwan Morgan from Indiana. He had an amazing season in 2019 for the Hoosiers, and then ended up getting drafted to the Jazz. Never had that crazy of an NBA career, but at least he made it. 32, they have Chris Clemens from Campbell. He led the entire NCAA in scoring for the Fighting Camels that season at just 5'9", and ended up playing for the Rockets later on as an undrafted free agent, as actually a pretty decent NBA player too. 33, they had Benny Boatwright from USC. He didn't really play very good as a senior at USC, ended up going undrafted. Kind of a weird one to put right there. 34, they have Cody Martin, the twin brother of Caleb Martin. He's a lock to be a top 40 player next season, and for a Nevada team that could arguably be the deepest from top to bottom. Yeah, Nevada had a really good season led by those two twins, and both of them ended up being teammates in the NBA, and both of them are still in the NBA to this day. 35, they have DeAndre Hunter. Hunter ended up leading Virginia to the national championship, so him being all the way down at 35 is a little bit crazy, but I guess they just didn't see it. He was a true freshman. One and done, though. The Hawks took him pretty high in the draft, and he's had a pretty solid career as a role player so far. He's back for a break. Oh, he was a sophomore, excuse me. He's back for a breakout season next season alongside Ty Jerome and Kyle Guy, and his defensive versatility and switchability will have hoops diehards and draft nicks drooling over his pro potential. He ended up being a pretty good pro player. 36, they have Clayton Cluster. He was one of the only returning guys from that 2018 Loyola Chicago team that made the Elite Eight. I don't know much about him, but that Loyola Chicago team was not near as good in 2019, and I think he played for the Jazz Summer League team but never made the NBA. 37, we have Kai Bowman from Boston College, who went to the NBA after this season, played for the Warriors, but only played one season in the NBA. 38, they have John Elmore. That's a really good mention right there. If anyone's ever watched the TBT, John Elmore is one of the legends of that entire league, and he just got waived by the Kings a couple days ago from their training camp roster. He ended up having a pretty great college career, one of the best college players in conference history. I think they were in the Sun Belt at the time. Or no, Conference USA. 39, they have Jordan Murphy from Minnesota. I don't know how he did that season, but I do know he ended up playing for the Timberwolves G League team later on. Not a crazy good pro player. 40, they have Jonte Porter, who had a very good season this year for Missouri, playing alongside his brother Michael Porter Jr. was already in the league. They said he has a chance to be a lottery pick in the 2019 draft. Obviously, we know what happened to Jonte Porter. He was having a pretty good year with the Raptors a couple years ago, then ended up getting a lifetime ban. So, kind of crazy looking back at. 41, they have Jesse Govan from Georgetown. Jesse Govan ended up playing for the G League Ignite later on. I think he had a pretty solid year with the Georgetown Hoyas this season. This was his senior year. 42, they have Zach Norvell. He came off the bench a lot for the Gonzaga Bulldogs this season, but it was part of that Elite Eight run. Great defender. Ended up playing for the Lakers later on. 43, James Palmer Jr. in Nebraska. Nothing crazy from him. Never made the league. 44, Segaba Konate from West Virginia. Crazy player to watch if you ever saw any West Virginia games back then. Crazy athlete and was just fun guy to watch. Never had any pro success, though. 45, Nick Ward, the star teammate to Cassius Winston and Aaron Henry on those Michigan State teams. Never had any pro success, but was a pretty solid college player. 46, Anthony Kwan Jr. out of Maryland, another guy that never had any pro success, but was a really solid star point guard in college for Maryland. 47, true freshman Keldon Johnson at Kentucky. A former five-star Frosh brings to the table for UK. He's going to make for one of the most overqualified true freshman glue guys in the sport next season and potentially more. And he's ended up having a really good career so far. 48, Justin Robinson at Virginia Tech. He had a really good year with the Hokies and ended up getting drafted or as an undrafted free agent to the Wizards. He's played like 3 seasons in the NBA. Pretty solid. 49, Josh Perkins. He was the starting point guard on that Elite Eight Gonzaga team. 50, Killian Tilly, who was another star player on that Gonzaga team and ended up playing for the Grizzlies later on. 51, Chris Silva from South Carolina, ended up playing for the Heat. Didn't have that crazy of a year with South Carolina, struggled a little bit, but still ended up making the league. 52, Quindary Weatherspoon. He was amazing at Mississippi State this 2019 season, ended up getting drafted to the Spurs, and only played, I think, 1 season in the league, but that year with the Mississippi State Bulldogs, he was electric. 53, Admiral Schofield from Tennessee. He was really good that season for the Tennessee Volunteers as well. Ended up getting drafted to the Wizards as a second-round pick. I think he played like 5 years in the NBA. 54, Udoka Azubuike. He was a junior. Struggled a bit this season. Ended up staying for his senior year and then getting drafted first round to the Jazz. Never really worked out in the NBA. 55, McKinley Wright IV from Colorado. Sophomore guard. This was not his last season in college either. I'm unsure if he came out in the 2020 or 2021 season, though. But he was just a solid point guard in college, ended up playing a few seasons in the NBA. 56, Mustafa Heron from St. John's at point guard. He struggled a little bit this season in college, never made the league either. 57, Darius Garland from Vanderbilt. He was amazing this college season when he did play, but he had a big injury. I think he tore his meniscus or something. Still ended up getting drafted in the lottery to the Cavaliers, and we all know how his career's worked out. He's a multi-time All-Star already. 58, Phil Booth from Villanova. I think he was an All-American second-team guy or something. Pretty solid guy. Led them to the NCAA tournament, but never made it in the NBA either. 59, Barry Brown Jr. from Kansas State, and the second fiddle to Dean Wade on that tournament team. Not a bad player there, and just never had any pro success because he was too short. 60, DeMarcus Simons from Georgia State. As a junior, he was pretty good. I think he was the conference player of the year there for Georgia State in the Sun Belt, I think is the conference they were in at the time. Never had any pro success, though. 61, Jordan Caroline, a forward from Nevada alongside the Martin twins. He was pretty good. Never made it in the NBA, though. 62, Jalen Adams from UConn. Another guy that he was on a terrible UConn team, so he didn't really have many tools for success as a team, but he had a pretty solid season. Never really had any chances in the NBA either, though. 63, we have Jarrett Culver from Texas Tech, a sophomore guard who led them to the national championship game. Culver last season became a rare sub-100 prospect who averaged at least 11 points per game as a freshman for a Power 5 program that made and advanced in the NCAA tournament. Just a terrific first season in the Big 12, and the second season should be even better. Yeah, he was amazing his sophomore year, ended up getting drafted in the lottery to the Timberwolves. 64, Chris Wilkes from UCLA. He is kind of one of these weirder guys because he had an amazing season as a sophomore at UCLA. Went to the draft, then had some mysterious illness or something, ended up going undrafted and never got a shot in pro basketball. 65, Charles Bassey from Western Kentucky as a true freshman. I didn't know he was that highly touted, but he ended up being a great player in 2020 to Western Kentucky and was just a dominant force in the middle. Ended up playing for the 76ers. I think he's still in the league right now. 66, Jalen Noel for Washington. He's had a pretty solid NBA career. He's out of the league right now, but he's just been a pretty consistent scorer. He had a good year at Washington that season. Number 67 is another guy I've never heard of, Marquise Reed from Clemson. Yeah, I've never heard of that guy. 68, Desmond Bane. This is a guy that was the second fiddle to Alex Robinson on this TCU team in 2019, and he was a great shooter, but he never really got many opportunities since he was playing with a star player, Alex Robinson. Ended up staying an extra year in college and getting drafted 30th overall to the Grizzlies and has had a really good career so far. 69, Ashton Higgins from Kentucky. He had a pretty okay college career, ended up playing a few games in the NBA, nothing crazy. 70 is Peyton Pritchard to Oregon, his junior season. Pritchard led Oregon in scoring with 15 points and 5 assists last season, while also emerging as one of the most prolific three-point shooters in the Pac-12. Peyton Pritchard's obviously become a pretty good player, and he was pretty good in college that season too, playing with Bol Bol. Number 71, another guy I don't know, B.J. Taylor at UCF. 72 is O'Shea Brissett at Syracuse. He had a pretty solid pro career and was really good that season at Syracuse. 73 is Bryce Brown from Auburn, a guy that led them to the tournament. They made a pretty deep run, and he ended up getting a chance in the NBA, never played any regular season minutes though. 74, Xavier Sneed from Kansas State. That's kind of crazy to see. He was kind of the fourth guy on that Kansas State team behind Brown, Wade, and Kamau Stokes. But he ended up playing pretty well for them the next season when he was a senior before going to the league. And he played, I think, 2 seasons with the Hornets. Just a pretty solid small forward, 3-and-D type player. 75, TJ Gibbs from Notre Dame. I have no idea who that is. 76, Jalen Fisher from TCU. That's a guy I haven't heard of in forever. Just a great defender. I don't really know much about his offensive game. I just remember him being a tough-nosed defender against my dad's favorite team, the Kansas State Wildcats. 77 is Kayvon Allen from Florida. He's now in the EuroLeague thriving. He had a really good season that year at Florida, though. 78, Ja Morant as a sophomore at Murray State. Looks like Murray State's got another guy in the backcourt who's going to get drafted, joining Isaiah Cannon and Cam Payne. Morant was a top 20 freshman last season, and now he's set up to average somewhere in the neighborhood of 17, 7, and 7. The question is, will Murray State be able to win out in the OVC and maximize Morant's exposure come March? They ended up, I think, making the second round of the tournament, and he ended up being the leading assist player in college basketball. I think he was like top 20 in scoring, and ended up going second overall in the NBA draft. A crazy career for Ja Morant, who is a walk-on or something crazy like that. 79 is Terrence Mann. He was pretty solid at Florida State that year, ended up getting drafted to the Clippers. 80 is Fletcher McGee from Wofford, was a star player there. Never really got a chance in the league. 81 is Luwane Pipkins from UMass. I've never heard of him. 82 is Amir Coffey from Minnesota. He had a really good career there and a really good season that year. Got drafted by the Clippers. 83 is Yoeli Childs from BYU. He was pretty solid that season, but never got a chance in the NBA either. And then we're almost to the end. 84 is Sam Hauser, who was at Marquette at the time. Obviously ended up being a pretty solid NBA player for the Celtics. He's like their sixth man right now. 85, Trace Tingle from Oregon State. 86, Ty Jerome, who was the star player on that national championship team and has sixth man of the year now in Memphis on a big contract. He's a pretty good player to be ranked number 86 as a junior. 87, Dylan Windler from Belmont. This was his senior year. He ended up being a first-round pick. 88, Austin Wiley from Auburn. 89, Marcus McDuffie from Wichita State. 90, Malik Yarbrough. I haven't heard that name in forever. Great player at Illinois State. 91, Issa Ahmed. That's another name I haven't heard in forever. He was a really good 3-and-D guy on that West Virginia team with Konate. 92, Naz Reid as a true freshman. Had a really good season. Undrafted free agent to the Timberwolves, and we all know how his career has played out so far. Really good. 93, Trey Jones at Duke, a true freshman point guard. He played 2 years in college, unlike the star trio, and was really good the next season and ended up getting drafted by the Spurs. 94, LaGerald Vick from Kansas. 95 is Bol Bol from Oregon. The word unicorn gets used loosely in basketball, but Bol Bol, whose height is 7'2" and reported wingspan is 7'8", fits the profile. He's going to almost certainly have a shot to put up big numbers right away as a freshman. And he certainly did end up getting drafted second round to the Nuggets and is still somewhat in the league today. He's a free agent right now, but I think he'll be on a team by the start of the year. 96, Jalen McDaniels from San Diego State. Not Jaden, the star on the Timberwolves, but he is on the Pelicans roster as of right now and has been a solid rotational guy his career. 97, Bruno Fernando from Maryland. He's been a solid big man in the NBA. Nothing crazy. I think he's out of the league right now. 98, TJ Shorts. If you really follow the NBA, you know that he was getting looked at by the Grizzlies because he has ties to their head coach. He was going to get a roster spot, but never ended up getting one. 99, James Thompson IV from Eastern Michigan. Never heard of him. And number 100 is Justin Wright Foreman from Hofstra. Had an amazing season and then ended up getting signed to the Jazz and played 1 year there. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys want me to do another top 100 video from any other season, comment down below and I'll make sure to do it. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.